Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So boxing has always been the wild, wild west of sports because the word boxing and corruption goes hand in hand. It is a common practice in this sport. And the corruption in the sport of boxing, it's so well hidden that usually the only time some of the truth comes out is accidentally. Or at least you can call it an accident because this investigation or lawsuit, if you will, that I'm about to talk about, it wasn't about boxing corruption. It started from a loan that wasn't paid off. Let me elaborate. Okay, so there's a boxing promoter by the name of Greg Cohen. He was actually sued by one of his former employees named Clifford Mass for investment fraud. So this former employee, he invested a lot of money into Greg Cohen's promotional company. He said he invested around $250,000. Now, in return, he was supposed to get a whole lot of favors from the promotional company. And he said he never got any of those things and he never got his money back. So he sues the boxing promoter, Greg Cohen, and Greg Cohen has to sit down in a deposition for hours being asked questions by Clifford Mass's attorney. Now, because Greg Cohen is accused of owing someone money, the plaintiff's attorney, he was grilling him basically on his business practices when it comes to his promotional company, seeing how he spends his money, trying to figure out how he was spending all of this money but not paying back the guy who's suing him. So the attorney, he runs across one big payment that Greg Cohen made to some company for $17,250. Greg Cohen, he tells him it's for Sports Consulting Services, SCS. He said it's an international company that works very closely with the sanctioning bodies. The plaintiff's attorney, he asked Greg Cohen, what does it do? And Greg says they are an advocate and lobbyist on behalf of various boxers and promoters and managers. Then Cohen states that he relies on advocates or lobbyists such as Sports Consulting Services in order to obtain from the sanctioning bodies high rankings for his fighters. Greg Cohen, he just admitted in a deposition that he pays off, he bribes certain companies, certain entities to get his fighters elevated when it comes to rankings, like a mandatory spot, put them in position to where they will have a title shot. He was then asked, how much do you usually have to pay to get these type of favors for these fighters? And he says sometimes it's thousands of dollars, sometimes it's millions. And this money is paid to Sports Consulting Services. This is when the plaintiff's attorney, he asked him, so who owns Sports Consulting Services? And Greg, he said, who's the owner? Yeah, if you know, who's the owner? And then he says, I don't know the ownership structure of that company. Well, it turns out this SCS company has been pretty much controlled, handled, and ran by the WBA. One individual listed as a current officer on SCS is Zalabi Cuba, who identifies herself on Instagram as a social media manager for the WBA. Another person that was working for this SCS company is Alfredo Mendoza, which turns out to be the WBA president's son, Gilberto Mendoza. So while Greg Cohen contradicted himself in this deposition by saying that he didn't know who SCS was, it turns out that SCS is basically the WBA. It turns out it's a fake company that the WBA was using so money would not be traced back to them when promoters and managers and whoever else were paying them for bribes to elevate a fighter's ranking, to get a fighter a mandatory position or a title shot, or even possibly to protect certain champions from possibly a dangerous mandatory. Guys, let me tell you something. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
How did you choose Lomachenko? Because
I did not choose him. He requested, Canelo requested. So we sent out a vote and we analyzed his history.
Ooh, Canelo and Lomachenko requested?
Absolutely.
Ooh, you just made headlines.
Lomachenko,
You just made headlines.
Lomachenko, top rank, requested.
Okay, now when you listen to what the WBC president, Mauricio Suleiman, just said right there, it actually makes more sense now why Lomachenko, Top Rank, Canelo Alvarez, and Golden Boy, they would reach out to the WBC president for favors. In this case, it was obviously Lomachenko who did not want to fight his mandatory, Devin Haney, and Canelo, who didn't want to fight his mandatory, Jamal Charlo. So they reached out to the WBC president and they made the mandatory problem go away. Now, did the WBC do this for free? Or is there another SCS type of company that is compensated for things like this? But at the end of the day, paid or not, it's still corruption. Matter of fact, speaking of Top Rank and Bob Arum, around 1999 or 2000, Bob Arum was almost actually indicted for admitting to conduct constituting commercial bribery in the sport of boxing. Bob was testifying against the IBF, which the head of the IBF was actually indicted for racketeering, fraud, and tax evasion. Bob Arum, he testified that he paid the IBF bribery money of $100,000 to get George Foreman a title fight with Axel Schultz in 1995. Bob said that the IBF originally demanded $500,000, but they settled for $100,000 before the fight and $100,000 after. And just like Greg Cohen did, he didn't pay the money directly to the WBA. He paid it pretty much through a middleman, which was SCS. This is what Bob Arum did. He paid the money through a middleman. His name was Hoffman. Bob also admitted that he had been paying this middleman Hoffman for years to get certain favors for his fighters. Now, it is just amazing how the dots are so connected. Because going back to Greg Cohen, now Greg Cohen, he was also asked by the attorney, were there any other type of entities, type of organizations that you would funnel money through, that you would basically pay to get favors for your fighters? And Greg, he said, actually, there is someone else. His name is Ricardo Rizzo. Now, Ricardo Rizzo is someone else that works with the WBA and other sanctioning bodies as well. But guess who Ricardo Rizzo's wife is? His wife is Gloria Martinez Rizzo. For those of you guys that don't remember Gloria Martinez Rizzo, she's the one that got suspended by the WBA for handing in an extremely controversial scorecard in favor of the Latino fighter over the Black American fighter Michael Fox. And then once the attention was already on her, they found out that she had tons of racist tweets towards black people on her Twitter account. So the WBA suspends her, but guess what? Now she's back to judging fights when it comes to WBA matches. Just think about how crazy that sounds. A known racist is going to be the judge of a fight that can involve a black fighter versus a Latino fighter or just someone who's not black. Just happened to be a big fight that was televised. Imagine all of the fights that were not televised that Martinez was involved in. And this is the reason why I told you guys at the beginning of this video, when it comes to boxing, corruption, racial double standards, or racism in general goes hand in hand. Those other words are synonymous with the word boxing. There should be no way that they can have this amount of proof that the WBA is accepting bribes in the sport of boxing without a massive investigation. This should be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, investigations in the sport of boxing today. I mean, because you guys have to understand something. We are only seeing the tip of the iceberg right now. I mean, just remember, guys, this information only came out because some boxing promoter got sued for money that he owed. Just imagine all the other corruption that's taking place right now, every single day in the sport of boxing. There needs to be a major investigation when it comes to the WBA. ESPN is the biggest sporting network in the country. How come they're not covering this story? Once again, guys, if this was basketball, football, or baseball, this would damn near be international news. It would easily be national news, and it would probably be the biggest story in all of sports. Man, with all the corruption that's going on in the sport of boxing, man, Netflix would have a field day with this story. Man, they could do a mini series that would probably last 2 or 3 seasons with all the dirt that's going on in the sport of boxing. So at the end of the day, man, people need to speak up and people need to address this. People of influence in the sport of boxing, they need to address this. They need to demand a major investigation. Because once again, once the investigation starts and you go to that house and you find that one dead body, there's most likely going to be another 20 bodies buried in that same backyard. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. All right, now check this out, guys. If you're looking to repair eczema scars, burns and bruises, dark spots and blemishes, then this right here is the perfect product for you guys. It's called Elo Deki Face and Body Oil. Athletes and top-ranking boxers, they're also using it after training to reduce swelling, inflammation, and to ease the pain. So get yours today. Go to elodeki.com, like them on Facebook, and follow them on Instagram. Fellas, I've got some great news for you. If you've lost your hair or have a receding hairline, the time has come when you can finally get your hairline back through a process called scalp micropigmentation. So here's how it works. It's a hair tattoo that replicates the look of your hair follicles when you have fully shaved it down. So to get this hookup, make sure you follow and contact my man Scalp Carolinas on Instagram. Let me tell you guys about Issa Israel Law Firm. It is a full-service legal practice based in Denver, Colorado, an emerging hub for combat sports and high-altitude training. If you're a fighter inside or outside of the ring and you need a law firm you can trust to fight for you, visit thefighterfirm.com or email help@iilawfirm.com. Legal representation is usually limited to plaintiffs or defendants in Colorado, but iFirm can help anyone in the world with trademarking their business name, logos, and U.S. immigration issues. This brother has been my attorney for a while and helped guide me through all kinds of business and civil issues, so make sure you guys go to thefighterfirm.com.